Good morning. So on behalf of the organizing committee, I'd like to welcome you all to eLex 2019. We are very happy to have you all here. And this warm welcome is also on behalf of the host institute, Selga ILTEC, which is the Center for the Study of General and Applied Linguistics at University of Coimbra. I'm Tanara, I'm the chair of eLex this year, and I'm a researcher at the center, and I want to have a few words about it before we move on. So, Selga ILTEC is a research and development unit of the University of Coimbra, financed by the Foundation for Science and Technology of the Portuguese government. Lexicography and related areas are in the heart of our research center. We work with corpus compilation and corpus-based studies, development of lexical resources, language modeling, terminology, normalization, and standardization, all of which based on a view of Portuguese as a pluricentric language. As such, our center has worked closely to the International Institute of the Portuguese Language, which is the official bureau for language policy of the community of Portuguese-speaking countries. Among several society-oriented lexical products that we have developed over the years, I'd like to highlight a special one for now, which is the Portal da Língua Portuguesa, the portal of the Portuguese language. This platform offers a series of dictionaries, lexical resources, word games, and it is all for free. It is a reference platform in the community of Portuguese-speaking countries, and we are very proud of it. Having said that, it's time to thank the sponsors, without whom we wouldn't be here. So, first of all, we'd like to thank Hornby Educational Trust, and Istok is going to talk a little bit more about their help in a few minutes. We also would like to thank Porto Editora, Oxford Dictionaries, and Dictionary.com. So, the theme of this year is smart lexicography. And we had this idea because we want to investigate different aspects of what we called smart lexicography. If you realize, and I'm sure you have, in the last decade, the use of mobile devices, such as smartphones, has increased considerably. Yet many dictionaries are still not adapted suitably for these digital formats, which is worrying considering that the majority of users of mobile devices, mobile devices on a daily basis. And I'm quite sure you are aware of this European survey on dictionary use. Lots of you here have answered the questionnaire. Thank you. We learned from that survey that people use mobile devices all the time, right, to check dictionaries. So, how can this situation be improved? What are some of the main difficulties faced by dictionary makers? How can we adapt to this kind of device? And another very important aspect is smart use and reuse of dictionary content. What we mean by that is that dictionaries often remain isolated entities, whereas the user needs and habits indicate that it would be much more useful to have them linked to other dictionaries and language resources, especially if integrated in various tools. And such linking and integration, we all know, pose numerous challenges. And especially if we conducted between resources of different dictionary makers most of the time in different countries. So the same is true for the reuse of dictionary content in the compilation of new resources. This makes it important to ensure compatibility of formats in which dictionaries are provided, and to develop API services and conversion tools that facilitate such compatibility, also bringing lexicography closer to the semantic web. So, our aim in this conference is to look at examples of good practices, as well as address some of the main challenges that need to be met in such undertakings. And if you have a look at this is a word cloud. You are most familiar with that if you work with corpora. This one is in the shape of E for eLex, e-dictionaries, e-lexicography. It was made, of course, by Stockholm, right? He had this brilliant idea. And all of the abstracts and all of the contributions at the conference are summarized here. And it is really interesting to see that while it is still, our conference is still about language, lexical, dictionaries, it is also about online, database, resources. Okay, so this is what we mean about smart lexicography. Just to give you a brief overview of our academic program this year, we have 5 keynote speakers, 18 sessions with 49 oral communications, 24 posters, 18 demos, 1 sponsor session, and 2 awards ceremonies. One is the Adam Kilgariff Prize, which will happen later on today, and the other one is the Hornby Educational Trust Bursaries Award. And I'd like to invite Stockholm, please, to host the ceremony.
Thank you, Tana. Okay, Hornby Trust, we were really pleased that the Trust contacted us this year, offering the award to eLex conferences, and we hope to continue this at the next conferences as well. And then we had to put this to some good use, and at eLex there's always plenty of purposes that we can put this to. One was the taking care of the video recording. So when you go home, you want to relive the conference, many presentations will be available on video. Or if you want to look at live stream here, you want to go into the room, maybe not be present at the lecture, hopefully not, but you can watch it live as well. And your colleagues who weren't able to come can watch it too. And the second part, this was the new thing that we wanted to introduce, is to sort of try to help people that were otherwise unable to come or that have troubles covering some of the costs with bursaries. As we try to put special stress on the Hornby Educational Trust goals, which are more directed towards teaching of English and connection to dictionaries, and I'm really pleased that we got this call out at the beginning of the year. Probably many of you have noticed it, and we got numerous applications, and then there was a panel made from the representatives from the eLex Organizing Committee and the Hornby Educational Trust representative, Susan Menge, who picked the 3 award winners. We were sorry we couldn't award more, but we'll work on that in the future. So now I'll embarrass 3 people because I'll invite them to come forward so we can take some photos. So these are our award winners. First is Emre Özcan from Turkey. So he has a PhD in linguistics with focus on lexicography from Ankara University, and he's been working in English teaching and Turkish language teaching field. So Emre, where are you? Come. So please. So the second one is Zaida Bartolomé Diaz. I probably mispronounced this, Zaida, but I'll learn your name in the next couple of days. So she's a PhD student at the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, and she's also working on a PhD in digital lexicography. Otherwise, she has experience in translation. So, Zaida, where are you? Okay. And the last one, Henrik Keller-Simonsen, which many of you have met at other conferences, and he's been in English teaching for many years, working also as currently working at the Copenhagen Business School, and he's giving a presentation at the conference as well on augmented writing. So, Henrik. So now we take a sort of official photo. Can you bear with us? You can take one. Okay. So come on. Get used to this. Okay, and this just the final thing which the Hornby Trust representatives wanted me to point out. Every year they run the Hornby Dictionary Research Awards. So this is focused on dictionary research. There's this website that they have, the new website. I think I might be able to show it without... or not. Anyway, they have a new website, and they awarded two awards connected with this year. I think it was up to £10,000, if I remember correctly. And there was a panel chaired by Gabby Stein, who was a founder member of eLex, Michael Rundell, and Hilary Nessie, who you all know. So they wanted to sort of point out this because the next call is coming next year, so if there are interested people in the room or watching us, please consider applying for this award. And that's it from me. Thank you.
So people, before moving on to our first keynote of the day, I just want to go over a few housekeeping. So, Wi-Fi, you probably noticed already, it is open, so you just go Villa Galère and that's it, okay? There will be a browser and then you just need to click and you are good to go. Another thing is our conference program. You probably realized that we went paperless this year and also no bags, okay? So all you have to do is to download the app. It's quite simple. You just go to your store, right? There is even for Windows Phone, okay? And you can download Conference for Me. When you open it, you'll see that you just need to find eLex. It is on the first page of the app. And then you just click on it, and then you've got the agenda, okay? If you see you can choose by day, you can add your sessions to your planner, and then you have your own, you see My Agenda, it's your personal session, so instead of circling things on a paper, now you do all that on the app. For instance, here you have the keynote, okay? And then you have the abstract and add to planner, okay? So please do download your program. Okay, but I don't have a smartphone. No problem, okay? So you go to the conference website, and if you see, we also have the program online on that link, the second link. Just if you're using your computers, for instance, All the program is there, also with the abstracts and everything. Okay? In addition to that, we will have the programs printed per room. So each day on the door, you will have the program of that room. So you won't get lost. Oh, and before I go on, please follow us on Twitter, hashtag eLex_conference, and also on Facebook. Post your pictures, make some nice comments. And moving on to program announcements. This is Alexandre Herculano room. This is the main room where all the main lectures, the keynotes will take place. The next room is Almeida Garrett, and we have, unfortunately, due to illness, a cancellation. It was a last-minute cancellation. So the very first slot after coffee break is empty. We are not going to anticipate the other sessions, okay? So you can either attend other sessions or wait until the next one starting at 11:30. And finally, are you presenting in this room? If you are, please go to the registration desk to sign a consent for video recording purposes. As this talk said, we are live streaming now, and we have the video recording for later, but we need your consent. What else? Are you presenting posters? Don't forget to leave your poster at the registration desk by tomorrow at 9:30, okay? We are going to hang the posters for you guys, so don't worry. Do you need a certificate? Request yours at the registration desk, and please inform if it is digital or print. And then, until the end of the conference, we will get one for you. Finally, are you traveling with hand luggage only? No colleague flying with hold luggage, okay? If that is the case, then you might have noticed already because you got our gift. We got this gift, and since we are academics, we like to complicate things, so we gave you this pretty nice but not very practical gift. So it's cute, it's beautiful, but it can't fly with you on your hand luggage. So, but we do have a way out, don't worry. All you are required to do, if you're not flying hold luggage, or if you don't have a friend or a colleague who can take it for you, is you just take the corkscrew, okay, the remaining you can keep, and leave it with us at the registration desk. We are going to send it to you, okay? So that later on, when you're home, having a very nice wine and opening it with that, you have a joke to talk about eLex, okay? So, having said that, I'd like to welcome you all again and say that we are now moving on to our keynote speaker. Thank you very much. Just 1 minute. Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce you to Margarita Correia, our first keynote speaker of the conference. Margarita Correia has a PhD in Portuguese linguistics from the University of Lisbon and a postdoc in computational lexicography at the Federal University of São Carlos, Brazil. She has been a professor at the Department of General and Romance Languages of the Faculty of Letters of the University of Lisbon since 1990, where she has taught several courses, including lexicology, lexicography, terminology, at both undergraduate and graduate levels. She is a member of the direction board of CELGA IUTEC, the Center for the Study of General and Applied Linguistics at the University of Coimbra, where she coordinates the research group Lexicon and Computational Modeling. She works mainly in applied linguistics with a focus on lexicography, terminology, neology, and language policy. With José Pedro Ferreira, she directed the projects VOP, Vocabulário Ortográfico do Português, the Spelling Dictionary of Portuguese, first and second edition, and LINCE, Conversor para a Nova Ortografia, a spelling converter, which are the official instruments for the implementation of the 1990 spelling reform in Portugal. With José Pedro Ferreira and Gladys Maria de Barcelos Almeida, she coordinated the VOC, what she's going to talk about today, which is the Vocabulário Ortográfico Comum da Língua Portuguesa, the Common Spelling Dictionary of the Portuguese Language, 2017, under the supervision of the International Institute of the Portuguese Language, which is a bureau for language policy of the Community of the Portuguese-speaking countries. Since 2018, she is the president of the Scientific Board of the International Institute of Portuguese Language. Please, Margarita.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much, Nara, for your presentation. And it's for me a great pleasure to be there and to be able to be the first keynote speaker of this event, which is quite, wow. I am very honored. And so I'm here to thank you for the invitation to be there. And I'm here to speak about VOC, which is the Common Spelling Dictionary for the Portuguese language, and which is our biggest project for the past few years. And, well, I couldn't have done all these things without Tanara's help, who is there, and José Pedro Ferreira, who was somewhere, and he disappeared now. So thank you to them, too. Okay. I'm not very used to speaking English. It's actually the second time in my life I do a conference in English. So I hope it goes okay. So let me see. This presentation will have these three main parts, which is some history on the VOC and some questions about Portuguese language orthography and the outset and function of VOC, some lexicographic challenges and issues we had to face for this dictionary, and finally some political role and impact that VOC had for the Portuguese language, and which is really the part I've been working more in the past few years, which is the political issues from this. So, the spelling of Portuguese language is set in a legally binding document, and all documents must adhere to this legally binding document. So it's mostly what happens for most of the European languages nowadays. But for the whole 20th century, we had, and until recently, Portuguese language orthography was dealt with within a bicentric setting, which is there were two norms, two standards, two orthographic standards, and there was one from Brazil and the other one from Portugal. And during almost 100 years, the academies of both countries have been, and governments have been negotiating to have a common binding document to unify the orthographic rules for Portuguese. And after a long story, in 1990, a common document was finally agreed upon, and it's called the Acordo Ortográfico da Língua Portuguesa. And there is the acronym, sorry. I only could remember the word in Portuguese, sorry. Okay. So, that document, that common document, consists of a set of rules defining how to write the words of Portuguese. So there is the document defining the rules, but part of that document, of that agreement, is to make a spelling dictionary, which is common to all countries, to all Portuguese-speaking countries, which were in 97 countries, then 8 countries, and nowadays 9 countries. 9 countries. So, this spelling dictionary was then called Vocabulário Ortográfico Comum da Língua Portuguesa, and so it's the practical implementation of the spelling rules, defining explicitly how words are written in Portuguese. However, and this VOC was organized under the guidance of the International Institute for the Portuguese Language, which is, as Tanara already referred, the official board for the definition of language policies for the CPLP for the Portuguese language countries. And this vocabulary was started in 2011, and I am from the past century, so many times I keep saying 19-something. Well, so 2011, and it was launched and presented and officially recognized in 2017. There is something I should... okay, so VOC is a common spelling of valid in all Portuguese-speaking countries, and there is something I should say. The Portuguese language has a phonemic orthography, and so it copes for phonological variation. This means, and we have to have this in mind to understand the issues I'm going to talk about. This means that although there is one common document with the rules, orthographic rules, in the application of these rules, there is spelling variation for some countries, because this orthography, it was the difficult part, so this is why they took all these years. We have phonological rules in different countries, well known for Portugal and Brazil, which have very different phonetics. And so the spelling tries to accommodate, so to bring together these different realizations, but also and so it admits some variation, orthographic variation. It means that although we have the same spelling rules, there are words which are written differently in Brazil and Portugal and Mozambique and so on, okay? So, to cope with this problem, so it's there, and the CPLP countries introduced the notion of national spelling dictionaries, which are called for as the VON, Vocabulário Ortográfico Nacional, and these VONs include the nationally representative words and, in some instances, national level variants. That means that the VOC is the big structure, and it is composed of eight national vocabularies, spelling dictionaries, and each one. But so it's on the same time it's the whole because it's integral, but it's also for the several countries. Okay. The VOC is officially hosted at the site of the CPLP, but also included in other sites, like namely in the portal the Língua Portuguesa, as Tanara referred previously. The default way in which those interfaces behave is to guess the preference of the user based on locale and country of the request IP. So you have the several flags. So I will go on. So this is the thing, and sorry, and you have the and you have the flags. The ones which are not marked, not highlighted, are those spelling dictionaries which are not yet available. The other are yet available. So you can choose to check for the Brazilian dictionary, the Cape Verdean, the Portuguese, the Timorese, and the Mozambican. But you can also, here in this button, you can also check for the whole thing. So you can use either national-based vocabularies or the whole thing. So, and besides, this is, you have here, you have the vocabulary, which has the general lexicon words, and then you have the toponyms, which is the biggest base of toponymy from the Portuguese language. And you have this dictionary, formas não adaptadas, which are loan words, which are not orthographically adapted to the Portuguese orthography. Okay, so some lexical issues we have to face. So we have 300,000 lexical entries, and they are distributed by the areas I mentioned before. And so each one specifies which of the words in VOC are considered a core part of each national vocabulary. And for those words that allowed spelling variation, which of the spelling options are recommendable for that country? That means all words are officially valid in the whole, in the 8 countries, but some words are specifically spelled in a particular manner in some countries. Okay, so. Each one was built on 2 pillars. One was the lexicographic memory of the country, that is the words included in reference dictionaries of that country. And there is also the frequency of each word in a corpus of the national variety, which is itself a pluricentric corpus created for VOC. I have to explain that for Brazil and Portugal, we had a big memory lexicographic memory. There are many dictionaries for these two variants, but for other countries this is not the case. And in that case, the basis was mostly the corpus, okay? And for some of these countries, that's the case of Mozambique, Timor, East Timor, and Timor-Leste, and is this me who is making all this noise? Okay, and in Cape Verde, it's the first time there is a systematic gathering of vocabulary of those countries. So historically, it has some impact. So you have here an example of the word capulana. Capulana is a Mozambican cultural word. It's a tissue. It's a tissue, and so you have, for this entry, you have the inflection, and as you can see in the corpora, you have it has a medium frequency in Brazil, a low frequency for Portugal, but it has a high frequency for Mozambique. The idea is that in the future we can provide also a dictionary based on frequency, which is not yet available for the Portuguese language. Okay. VOC is implemented in a platform called OSLIN, Open Source Lexical Information Network, which is from Martin Jansen, which is also a colleague who unfortunately couldn't be there. And it is designed as a relational database with tables for basic lexicographic notions and relations between these tables. Each lexical entry contains a citation form and a word class, as well as additional information such as syllabic structure of the word and inflectional paradigm. And so you have here, you have the verb falar, which means speak in Portuguese. And so it's a verb, and you have the syllabic division, and so you have all the inflectional paradigm of the verb, and you have this for verbs and for all variable words in Portuguese, of course. Verbs are the most difficult, in fact. When considering a national variety, there is a scale of acceptability. So, the idea behind this is how to get a dictionary, a spelling dictionary, which is both integral, which is mainly integral. That is, for each country you have the words that are used in the space, which are common to the whole space of the speaking countries, but you also have the specific words or word forms of these countries. So, and the idea was not to make a contrastive dictionary. We wanted to make an integral, and I used the term integral in the sense used by Luis Fernando Lara, which is a Spanish, Mexican lexicographer. So, this was solved by a scale of acceptability from words that are official and that belong to BON, and to forms that are deemed and not acceptable in that variety. There are 5 levels. I will show them soon. And in its course, then, VOC consists of an index table with 9 columns. The first one indicates the ID of the word, and the other columns, the acceptability index for each of the 8 countries participating in the project. Okay? So there are forms which are acceptable in all the countries. There are forms that are acceptable in some countries, in only one country, etc. Levels. So you have departing from the lexicographic memory to all words was attributed the level 2, which is a word of unrestricted use in the country, but not explicitly registered in a primary source. And so these words were checked by, first of all, they were checked in the corpus. And if they belong to the corpus and if they are accepted by the national teams, because each country has one team and this team works his own dictionary. So if it is accepted, it's marked with level 1, okay? And then we have so all words in the VON are either 1, and sometimes also 2. A word not recommendable in the VON due to usage considerations. For instance, you have like registro in Brazil and registro in all other countries. So you have to mark it good for Brazil, but not good for other countries. So it has a level 3. And a word not representative of the country's lexicon due to country-specific variation choices. For instance, you have for Brazil, there is a word in Portuguese which is facto, which means fact, but in Brazil it's said and spelled fatu. But fatu is for Portugal a suit. So these words, which are very complicated cases, are marked with 4. So there are 2 fatus, one which is only for Brazil and one which is for other countries, but meaning suit. And then the first fatu brasileiro corresponds to facto in the other countries. So it's not. These are the complicated cases. So, and in 5 you have a word which is fully unacceptable in the VON, and sometimes it happens because we have different, all words have a grammatical category, but there is no, Portugal and Brazil have not the same grammatical labels for words. And so sometimes, for instance, in Brazil we can say that meu, which is mine, is a possessive adjective, but this is completely impossible in Portuguese. So that these words come as only possessive and with no adjective, okay? So, and now the part I can speak more about, which is the political role and impact of the VOC. So, first of all, the VOC constitutes a milestone for Portuguese lexicography, but also electronic lexicography. So, Portuguese language have dictionaries for Portuguese language, monolingual dictionaries for Portuguese language started much later than in other countries in Europe. And we have not a very developed lexicography. So this VOC is, in this sense, this VOC is a milestone. It has also some characteristics which are unique, like the fact that for some countries it's the first time they have a systematic collection of the vocabulary of those countries. And for instance, the toponymy, which is now put together in a database with more than 70,000 toponyms. And so Portuguese language is now provided with an electronic large-scale spelling dictionary there is no semantics in the dictionary. Maybe one day we can do something about it. And it can become the basis for new derived lexicographic resources. For instance, we can print the whole thing, which in political terms still has a very big impact. So these databases are not physics, and so they don't have impact if you cannot hit someone with the databases. And so you can print either the whole thing or the individual, the national level vocabularies, but you can also think about doing new dictionaries. For instance, taking the spelling dictionary and developing a real dictionary with definitions and examples and everything for a national variety, etc. And it is also the base for NLP tools involving lexical knowledge, of course, okay? It's worth saying that these resources are open source, okay? All these resources are open source, which has been a principle we have been insisting on since the beginning. So the VOC has been conceived as a permanent work in progress, and in this sense there has been created a commission of specialists which are going for the whole, all the countries, which are going to decide what to do about VOC from now on, okay? So VOC became part of a new political perception of the Portuguese as a pluricentric language, with several emerging national standards besides those of Brazil and Portugal. So, for decades, we have two standards, one from Brazil and the other one from Portugal, and the African countries followed Portugal. And so the managing was made in these two pillars. But now the idea is that we have a common language, and which is pluricentric, which has new emerging standards, namely those of Angola and Mozambique, which are two large countries from Africa, and which are now developing their own standards. And so it's the idea of how to look at Portuguese from a political level changed with the VOC, but the VOC is part of it, okay? All previous lexicographic products, including spelling dictionaries, were nationally oriented and adopted a contrastive stance, okay? But now we have a pluricentric dictionary for the Portuguese language, which has this integral stance, okay? VOC also inaugurates a new perspective on the international management of Portuguese. 4 years, this corpus, ILP, this corpus from the CPLP, from the community, is now 30 years old. But it only became more active since 2010, when the Portuguese-speaking countries decided that the ILP would coordinate the projects of, namely the project of the Common Spelling Dictionary, but also other projects for all countries. And we have other projects like, for instance, Portugal portal for Portuguese language teachers with all the national varieties represented. And we now are working in a terminology project too, which is with representation of the national varieties. So, the first project which has been given to ILP to develop in such a manner was VOC, okay? And in ILP, all member states, all CPLP member states are represented as peers. And so the ILP incorporates the first official resources of the Portuguese language for all countries, for a significant number of countries of speaking Portuguese. VOC intends to launch a shared management of the Portuguese language orthography, in which all countries have equal status. It means that before we had the Brazilian Academy, the Portuguese Academy, and in generally they discussed these orthographic issues, and other countries which had not yet, they didn't have specialists on the area, and they had other issues to solve. And so they could not participate in these discussions. But now the idea is that departing from VOC, all countries become members, in fact, of the definitions for the Portuguese language orthography. So, as a consequence of the VOC, the ILP created a Council for the Portuguese Language Orthography, which is called COLP, and its first meeting will be next Monday. So, and I am deeply involved in it, so it's not easy. All decisions on Portuguese language spelling will be made in a diplomatic context from now on, by official representatives of all Portuguese-speaking countries. This is changing the paradigm on Portuguese language. VOC allows for the end to the 100-year-long orthographic schism started in the early 20th century. So from now on, we have actually one set of orthographic rules and one spelling vocabulary, and the schism between Portugal and Brazil, which lasted for almost 100 years, is finished. And finally, I think I was short. It's okay. It's okay. I'm always very short in my presentations. And finally, just to emphasize that VOC is a real lexicographic resource. It is actually a spelling dictionary with all the characteristics and all the issues typical for lexicographic projects. But it is also, last but not least, a significant asset for linguistic policy. And for me, personally, is the aspect which is more interesting, which is also very interesting. I'm saying more interesting, and José Pedro Ferreira is angry. No, it's also interesting from VOC. Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much. And this is...
Hello. Is it working? Yeah. Thank you very much, Margarita, for this enlightening talk. Perfect timing. Now we have a few minutes before coffee break for questions. Yeah, Anna.
Thank you very much, Margarita. This was a very interesting resource, and I'm very grateful for it. And this is not a question, it's really just a thank you note, because I used VOP extensively when I was editing the Oxford Portuguese Dictionary, and it was a real help. At the time, there was no VOC, so I had to keep switching from VOP to the Academia Brasileira de Letras, and I only wish VOC was there 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but well done, and thank you very much. I hope this is as useful to other lexicographers as it was to us who worked on the Oxford Portuguese Dictionary.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I'm Joona Pyysalo from Helsinki University, and my question is quite simply, how well are these phonological rules leading from, let's say, the common Portuguese to these dialects? Are they known, and can they are?
Yes.
Excellent. Then I have something to show you later on today.
Okay. They are known, they are described more for Portugal and Brazil, of course.
Yes.
And less for the other Portuguese-speaking countries.
Well, then I might have some solutions to you,
Okay.
which I'm so glad to present it.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jack Halpern from the Shizuke Dictionary Institute in Japan. I'm a lover of the Portuguese language. I've never known about VOC. I'm extremely impressed, and I'll certainly be using this resource from now on. I'm just wondering, you mentioned the CPLP, I think, the countries that speak Portuguese.
The community of Portuguese-speaking countries.
I just wonder to what extent some of these countries actually use Portuguese. I believe that in Equatorial Guinea is one of the members, and also East Timor. But I've heard that maybe only 5 or 10% of the people actually speak Portuguese. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Equatorial Guinea, I don't know. It's a case. So it became a member of the CPLP in 2014, and so let me speak very politically correctly. So. It adopted the Portuguese language in this decade, and unfortunately they don't use so much Portuguese yet, but we hope that they become actual users of the Portuguese language. For other countries, in Timor, yes, there are not many Portuguese speakers, but the schools are teaching in Portuguese. So for the first years, they have bilingual teaching in both Tetum and Portuguese, but after third year, they are taught in Portuguese. It means that the new generations will be speaking Portuguese at least at the formal level, okay? These things, one of our members of the team is now 91 years old, which is Mr. Evanil Bechara, and it's very nice because people, when they grow old, there are good things in growing old, thanks God, and one of the things is that you have this historical view. And when I had just started with the VOC, and once he said, we are not working for us, for our generations, we are working for future generations. And this is true, because the orthography is that many people don't use the new orthography in their private writings, but the new generations don't know any other orthography, and so it will become more used. For other countries, yes, all these Portuguese-speaking countries are multilingual, and so they have lots of national level languages. But Portuguese has been, by the results in from the census, Portuguese has been growing in these countries for many reasons. First of all, because it's official, because it's the language of the school, but also because they had civil wars for years, and the communities had to come to the big centers, and the vehicular language was in fact Portuguese. And so, and also it's now becoming a national level. I think that it will become mother language for many people in the next decades. Okay? You're welcome.
No more?
Thank you for your talk. I would like to ask about how your language users cope with different dictionaries. One dictionary giving this strict orthographic norms, and possibly other dictionaries giving this actual language use.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, I'm not sure if I could understand the question, but can you please repeat?
For instance, I come from Estonia. We have there two different dictionaries. One similar to your book, giving people strict rules about language norms and everything. And besides it, there is a general dictionary for language that is described as a descriptive dictionary. And our users are very much confused by different information in both dictionaries. And I wanted to ask about your users.
Okay. I have no scientific data to give you. We have not studied yet the reception of these dictionaries. Nowadays we have two dictionaries online, which are, there are more Portuguese language dictionaries online, of course, but there are two which are very used, which is Priberam, one from Priberam, and the other from Porto Editora, which is one of our sponsors. And they are Portuguese, they are from Portugal. But as they are the biggest open dictionaries, they are used all the way. In terms of spelling, which is the issue here, they use the official spelling, so they follow the official things. In terms of other descriptions, I don't have many. I don't know if people really gets confused, because this thing is only for formal aspects, and the other are general language dictionaries. And however, I'm not sure if people are already using VOC a lot. Okay, I don't know, and I don't believe so. I hope they will, and it's all very new for people. Even these orthographic issues, these political issues, etc. These are not. For some countries, this is completely new. In Brazil and Portugal, it's more discussed. But well, I hope that it becomes more used in the future. Okay. There is someone there.
Thanks for your talk, and this is a really impressive project. I find particularly makes me jealous, and I think everyone here, that this is permanently funded, that it's just going to go on forever. Maybe you need governments for that. But I'm interested in your opinion about the importance of official orthography. because it seems like people are spelling things in more and more different ways today as they wish. On the other hand, we have a certain wish for standardization. So how do you feel about this contradiction between the two things?
Okay. Of course, I wondered a lot about that because I am a linguist, a scientist, and most of all, and so normative things are not really were not really my business. The question is, we are here speaking only of orthography. And orthography is useful. It is useful that it has that there is one only orthography because it has a positive impact in teaching the language, in also for NLP tools, so for the editing of books, etc. And so this spelling is for formal uses. In everyday life, everyone writes the way they want. And it is very, I don't resist to tell you a story, which is in 1910, which was the year in which the Republic was installed in Portugal. This movement of having a spelling reform for Portugal, and I'm speaking only about Portugal, was started by an employee of the national press in 1910. He was revising the texts of the laws, of the Portuguese laws, and he verified there was a lot of orthographic variation. And he convinced his boss that it was bad for the institution because they spent lots of money editing things and revising things, and they couldn't have an orthography which was normalized in all government and legal texts. And that's how this movement came. So it's felt like a need by the society that we have only one orthography. But pay attention, we are only speaking of orthography, never speaking of standardizing the language, standardizing the usage. It's not that. We are speaking strictly about orthography. I don't know if I could answer your question. I'm not, okay.
Just a short question. I probably misunderstood what you said about frequency, about displaying information about frequency of words. And also I wanted to know if it would be feasible to add audio pronunciations for words, or is it impossible because of variation and etc.?
We have not yet pronunciation tools. That's one of the developments. It's to have an orthoepic, kind of an orthoepic dictionary. But we don't have it, we haven't it for now. And about frequency, we are starting to, as we could collect all these sources, and as we could compare them with corpora, we now, first of all, we see that many things that are in the lexicographic memory are not good things or actually used words, you know? So at the same time, we are cleaning some of these words which are really not used anymore in Portuguese, or maybe they were never used, okay? And so it's one of the developments is to find a way of having frequency information for all the words, or at least for most of them, which is, of course, I teach, so I'm very sensible to teaching, and for Portuguese language teachers, it's very important to know, and designers of curriculum and so on, it's important to know which are the more frequent words. So this is something for the future. They are very young, so they have lots to do.
Okay, so on that note, we'd like to thank you, Margarita, again. So we wrap up the first